Hello and welcome to Calling the Real You podcast. This is Pamella Horton, your host and founder of Calling the Real You, which is a blog, and of course today's podcast is all about meeting somebody very, very special who's been a dear friend of mine for several years now. And for those of you who are not familiar with Calling the Real You, we are simply a space, a community where we talk about higher consciousness, the real you, steps to bring out the real you in terms of times of chaos. And it's really about helping you find the calm in the chaos in life, whether that's through reading, whether that's through Buddhist practice, whether that's through meditation. And we just kind of look at all different modalities. We bring on very special guests who have different, unique expertise that allow for higher consciousness to raise in themselves as well as the people that they're meant to serve. And as always, we invite you to listen not just with your physical hearing, but also with your spiritual hearing and every cell that you are, because our cell has memory and our cells have memories. And when you're able to tap into those through times that are difficult or that during times that are challenging, whether it be professionally, personally, spiritually challenges, it's just great to be able to tap into the real you through the use of these recordings and listening to these experts give their expertise. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you, as I mentioned, to a very dear special human being. His name is Jim Oliver, and Jim and I have been friends, as I mentioned, for several years. He is a multi-keyboardist and an Emmy Award-winning musician, a dynamic presenter, accomplished musician, and composer of more than 3,500 hours of transformational healing music. Jim began his lifelong musical journey at age 5 when he took his first piano lesson. He majored in classical organ at Hart College of Music and then spent 8 years on the road performing in showrooms and fine dinner theaters across, including Las Vegas and Lake Tahoe. Since 1981, that is, he intently studied and researched the beneficial power of music with a passion. He's played more than 70,000 hours of music in his lifetime so far. He brings forth unique combinations of sustained tones, melodic notes, and chord progressions that speak to the soul and expand one's consciousness, right? So now you're understanding why I wanted Jim on our show and why I wanted to introduce him to all of you. He really, in fact, Bruce Lipton calls Jim's music calming yet intellectually energizing, and that's what I found to be the truth as well. He's very passionate about helping people self-heal and experience transformation through the power of sound. And his music invites the human spirit to remember how awesome and divine it truly is. Jim's music can help to restore balance and harmonize the body, mind, and spirit and emotions, while it integrates cellular healing and harmony, which creates coherence in the field. Now, I can go on and on and on about Jim because he's quite accomplished. He's helped thousands and thousands of people, and it's really his soul and his gift through music that I'm just really proud to be able to introduce him to you. So, Jim, welcome to Calling the Real You.
Hi, Pamela. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm just so pleased and honored that you're here with us. I'm actually literally jumping up and down right now because you really are the essence of what Calling the Real You is about. And so welcome.
Well, isn't this fun? And, you know, as you were reading your introduction about Calling the Real You, one thing that came to mind, yes, we've been friends for a lot of years, and in finding calm in chaos, yes, music is fabulous at that because it helps balance and neutralize and bring a sense of non-reactivity. But one thing that we can share with people is that every time Pamela and I send emails to each other, and this started years ago, I would call her, "Hello, Patricia, and she would say, "See ya, Henry," and we would just like call each other, use different names for each other, and make up really funny names, like Petunia or whatever. And humor is so much about what it's about. We take ourselves and each other, I think, way too seriously a lot of times. It's we put $100 worth of effort into 5 cents worth of problems, and then that's because of the programming of how we were taught to react to a situation. If somebody does something or something's not going your way, your coworkers, your family, your friends, your brothers, your sisters, aunts, uncles, somewhere along the line, we've picked up this programming of a reaction that, the push, shove, rather than the yin and the yang of flow. Just flow with it. And what is this really about? We have a saying around our house: every moment is an opportunity for self-responsibility. So when you call that to mind, what is this about? How am I contributing to this situation? How did I call this into my presence in this moment? What have I energetically set up to learn from this? And if you can adopt that kind of philosophy of what's the message, what's the learning, what's the opportunity, rather than, well, that person and they this and they that and I'm gonna, and all you do is get your blood pressure going. And if you can just breathe and step back for a few moments and ask, what's the participation in this? What's the highest purpose in the moment to create a resolution? You'll find that many, many situations can much more readily diffuse and come to a place of wholeness, of mutual understanding, which could be as simple as you agree to disagree with the other person, but there's a sovereignty that you don't surrender your sovereignty, and you don't try to make someone else wrong and diminish their sovereignty. And that's just, a nice way of dealing with some of the wild things that are going on in the world today.
We talk a lot about on the show about vibration. Not everybody who joins us is really, they don't know much about higher consciousness or mindfulness per se. They're just starting to awaken. Some of us, some listeners are fully awakened and do have a daily practice in their lives, but there are a lot of folks who do listen who are just, scratching the surface of this whole other world of creating our own reality, taking personal responsibility. And you and I have certainly had conversations about personal responsibility, being in the moment, taking a look at without being reactionary, not being attached to the outcome. You've worked with people like Marianne Williamson, Kenji, Kamara. You've provided music for such specialists in this personal development, spiritual development space. And with regards to the energy or on a cellular level, the healing, not being attached to outcomes, can you tell us a little bit about why music is so powerful, especially your music? Now, and before you answer, I have to share with everyone, I listen to music every night before I go into the shower. And it's my way at the end of the day of just kind of removing any kind of stagnation or frustration if I've experienced it throughout the day. It helps me vibrate out of an existing mood that's not necessarily healthy for me. And if I'm in already a great mood, I still listen to music because it just helps expand the already good mood that I was in. And I do listen to your music, not every night, but most nights, to be able to help me either stay in the vibration that I'm in or to vibrate out of something that's not healthy for me. Can you talk to me a little bit, and all of us, about why it's so powerful to utilize the tool of music? How effective is it, and how effective your music is?
Well, that's a great setup and understanding. Let's just look at the core, the root, the foundational aspect of life. Everything is energy. Everything is vibration. Everything has a frequency. Everything has a resonance to it. One of the things that I observed very, very early in life when I was playing the piano, certain notes would make the teacups rattle on the shelf, certain notes would make the screen door rattle, certain notes would make, something in the room rattle, and you experience that today. A car goes by, music's playing, thump, 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 and something will rattle in the house. That's called sympathetic vibration. I call it harmonic resonance. If you have two tuning forks that are tuned to the same frequency, let's say they're both tuned to A 440, and you tap one and it's vibrating and you can hear it. If you put it next to the other one, the second one will start to vibrate in harmony, in sympathetic resonance, sympathetic vibration. So understanding that, knowing that we take on the vibration of our surroundings. I did a lot of work in the 80s with kinesiology, muscle testing, acupuncture, naturopathic doctor, oriental medical doctor, testing specific frequencies and waveforms and acupuncture points and meridians as to a weak muscle test. There is a specific sound frequency, which is the pitch of the note, and waveform, which is the way the sound travels through the air. Basically, a sine wave is like a flute sound. A square wave is a woodwind. A sawtooth wave is brass sound. And so I would create music based on the muscle testing. The kinesiologist would test a variety of areas, would come up with the priorities, about a dozen priority issues. We'd find the specific frequency and waveform that when the sound is played, the weak muscle test would go literally so strong that, the 200-pound kinesiologist could literally pull himself off the ground as somebody holding their arm out to the side or their leg up. It's that profound. It's unbelievable. When I first came to Santa Fe, my wife Jan got me a wonderful book called Cymatics, and there's lots of videos on cymatics online. Basically, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen them, you take a plate of steel, put a speaker underneath it, and pour a pile of sand on the plate of steel, play a frequency, and this pile of sand migrates into a beautiful mandala-like pattern. Change the frequency, the pattern changes. Lower frequencies, these piles of sand will kind of migrate and absorb each other and turn into a larger pile, and that moves around. That's how our body and being responds to sound. So when you find sounds that have demonstrated themselves to be supportive, nurturing, balancing, harmonizing, and then I would create a piece of music around that so that the emotions get involved. Music and emotion go hand in hand. A soundtrack to a movie, the soundtrack's role is to portray the emotion of a scene and the overall feel of the movie. So, if some guy's walking down the street, if there's no music, you have no idea what's about to happen. And based on the kind of music you play, if you play something really light and gentle, well, you think the ice cream truck's going to come by and the guy's going to have a nice day. But if you have something ominous, minor key kind of thing, well, something scary is going to happen. And that's how our relationship with sound has evolved through nature. Nature does the same thing. You're outside and you hear thunder. Well, what do you think might be happening next? If you hear birds chirping, if you hear, dogs barking, if you hear kids playing off in the distance, we are so attuned. Plants are attuned to sound and music. There's wonderful studies done back in the 70s, Secret Life of Plants. They took 3 identical plants. They played rock music to one, they played devotional music to another, and they played, heavy, aggressive, angry music to the third. And as you might expect, the ones that got the devotional music grew twice as large as the ones that got no music. The ones that got the rock music, well, they didn't do quite as well, and the ones that got the angry, aggressive music literally withered up and died.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an awareness that we can have as to how important sound is in our environment, to play music that nurtures and encourages you. You know, we talked about self-healing, self-awareness, self-responsibility, and sound can act as a buffer between you and irritation, noise, construction, guy with the lawnmower next door, in your office, 90 people yakking on the phone doing their jobs. In the old days, typewriters. When I would do big expos, whole life expos and massage therapy conventions and those kinds of things, where there would be literally hundreds of exhibitors and thousands of people in the exhibit hall, people would come by my booth. I'd have the music playing softly, and we'd come in and have a nice conversation. And then I'd say, now watch the difference when I turn the music off. And I would just hit the pause button on the player, and it was just like you turn the volume of the room up twice as loud. You heard everybody. You heard the guy across the hall. You heard people 3 aisles down. You heard the racket. Put the music back on, and it all came into a more personal, intimate space. In industry, where there's like a drop forge, which is they take a plate of steel and they whack it with a die and they hammer it into a form. Huge impact. Bang, bang, bang. They play white noise, which is just kind of a whooshing sound. Keeps the eardrums in a state of flexure, and that helps. When the impact happens, your ears are already flowing. Same thing if you're standing in a crowd. If you're there with your knees locked and you're rigid and fixed and somebody bumps into you, you fall over. But if you're there flowing, almost like in a Tai Chi kind of position, and somebody bumps into you, you just move and flow. Like a leaf flowing down the stream. It gets stuck on a branch or a log. Well, it just gently, after a while, works its way loose and continues to flow. So flow is a key word with music, with body, mind, spirit, emotions. Emotions are 90% of what's in the driver's seat. So if you start your day in an angry mood and your emotions are angry, your emotions are frustrated, your body has no choice. Your mind loves to play in that kind of a situation. Mind loves to hijack, the emotions and take over. The body will absolutely, just like with cymatics, you play a frequency, that pile of sand, the cells of your body, the blood, the cells, the bone, the tissue, the muscle, it's going to migrate into a form that represents anger, chaos, frustration, confusion. If you play music that balances and harmonizes, the world doesn't go away. It's not about making the dream better. It's about being empowered in your life. And that's the whole key, is self-empowerment, self-awareness, self-realization. And it absolutely, absolutely works. I've done, like you mentioned, I've been doing this for 35 years. Well, I started piano when I was 5 and majored in classical organ and played Vegas and Tahoe. And, I've done tens of thousands of hours of music, about 15,000 hours on stage, always observing how profoundly music affects people, whether it's a nightclub, a supper club, a family gathering, playing for young children, playing for old people who are transitioning into their next adventure. It's so profound. And what an honor for me to be able to play music as babies are being born. And what an honor to have the music played when people are making their transition.
What a beautiful gift, for sure.
It truly is.
You sometimes you mentioned the words, our mind loves to hijack our emotions, and that's one of the truest statements I've ever heard stated, really. It's the truth, and it will keep you hijacked and for as long as it possibly can. And one beautiful way to offset that is, again, as we're mentioning music, we forget sometimes that we are what we consume, especially if we're living an unawakened life, if we're on autopilot and operating from our subconscious mind. And one way to understand whether you are operating from your subconscious mind or not is the perfect example that I love to give. When you drive in your car and you're on a familiar route, driving from the store to home or to home to work or work to home, and you arrive at your destination, but you don't know how you got there, my question is, who was it that was driving the car? Well, it was you, the subconscious you, the part of you that's on autopilot. And we forget that we are what we consume, whether it be food, music, the company that we keep, etc. And the other thing that we forget is we forget how simple it is to jog out of something that's hijacked us, our mind, if it's hijacked us, our emotions, that is, how easy and simple it is to get out of it. It does not have to be a complicated task. We can use the right music, such as yours, to feel nourished, to feel empowered. I like to actually, I don't think I've shared this with you, Jim, but your music, when I listen to it, makes me feel as if I am supported. I'm being cradled by the palm of the universe or the palm of God, so to speak. I feel very, very much at peace, very, very centered, and I use different pieces for the mood that I am trying to achieve. But it always speaks very deeply, and it's just an instantaneous release, and it is very powerful, very amazing. But yet we forget. A lot of us like to make things very, very complicated. I'm stuck in this rut. I don't know what to do. Let me meditate for 20 minutes. Oh, no way, I can't. And we use all of this language to prevent us from going back home to the real us, the real you. Right. And music is such a beautiful catalyst that can be used, and in an instant, your vibration changes.
That's absolutely it, Pamela. And let's go back to earlier talk about programming and reactivity. So much of our life is led by programming of old stuff. If we can just start each morning fresh, and everything that I'm sharing on this call is my experience. These are things that have happened in my life, that I've experienced, that I've been aware of, that I've witnessed in other people. Now, how does music help with this? When you think back, here's a beautiful example. When I was probably 14 years old, I got a Beatles album at Christmas time. By the way, I'm 63, so that was a while ago. That was in the 65, 66, 67. I was born in 52, so 66. I was 14 years old. To this day, if I listen to a song from that Beatles album and close my eyes, I can still see the Christmas tree. I can smell the Christmas tree. I smell the pine. I smell my dad used to get Canada balsam, which are very aromatic. That whole relationship is there. Somebody is cooking food. I like to use the analogy of food a lot. Sometimes you're in the mood for fruit salad in the morning. Sometimes you want oatmeal. Sometimes you want something more substantial. Your inner guidance is already offering you access to your higher self, your true nature. Music, because it's waveforms. If you look at an oscilloscope, you'll see the sound waves just moving and flowing. Just like a calm pond of water, you drop a pebble into it, you see the waves. Sound travels the same way. It can repattern, it can balance. A lot of people are familiar with the noise-reducing headphones that you wear when you're on an airplane. So instead of hearing from the jet engines, the way that works is if you have a sine wave, it looks like a big S on its side, peaking, and at the exact same time, you create a waveform that's 180 degrees out of phase. That means when one wave is peaking, the other one is valleying. So they're 180 degrees opposite each other through their cycle. If you play those two simultaneously, you literally hear no sound because the sound energy from the one that's peaking is offset, neutralized, balanced by the sound energy of the waveform that's valleying. Then the first wave, when it valleys, the second one is peaking, and so forth. They work 180 degrees opposite each other. Just like if you put your hand up and your friend puts their hand up and they're touching, if you push with 5 pounds of pressure and they push with exactly 5 pounds of pressure, nothing goes anywhere. They balance each other out. And when you take the intentionality of when I create the music, I ask for what will support people for their highest purpose in this moment, what will empower people for their highest purpose in the moment, what will inspire people to achieve the life that you are entitled to, that you and your sovereignty, you and your divinity, you in your perfection are here to have that wonderful life, the real you. I start my day every single day, and at 63 and having done a lot of things, and you read a lot of nice things in my bio. Even at that, I still want to achieve as much as I possibly can to help people help themselves through music, to maximize every opportunity that I can to bring forth whatever I can to help support people. I read a commitment statement that I'm taking a course with my dear friend Deborah Poneman, Yes to Success.
Mm-hmm.
And I read my commitment statement every morning before I go for a 5-mile vigorous walk through they call it a green belt out here, which is kind of like a nature area. Every morning, and it takes me an hour and 15 minutes to do that 5 miles. I work a good clip at it, and I enjoy the trees, the dirt, the rocks, and even the dog poop that's in the trail. Sometimes it would really annoy me, and then it's like, well, you know what? Is that how I'm going to let my day be guided? Is because of that? No. You step over it, you move through, you look at the clouds, you watch the birds, align with the message, the perfection that nature has in store for you. Mm-hmm. And I do that every day, and I remind myself. And when I want to put the bazooka back on the hood of my car, when these drivers make me crazy, it's like,
practice is building a practice into your life is really important for finding peace, etc. But I think that's one of the reasons why I love what you do. You do it. You're a professional. And just in the fact that you ask how you can create something, what is it that you are supposed to create to support people for their highest good is amazing, because our intentions, and when we request things, we receive them. I mean, that's how the law of the universal laws operate. When you ask, you receive. And because you intentionalize each piece of your music that way is incredible, very selfless. And I just want to reiterate that, and after I'm done here, please tell people how they can find you, how they can find your music to purchase and bring it into their lives. If you're somebody who wants to live more peacefully, with more unconditional love, not just for other people, but for yourself, if you're somebody who wants to find that calm in the chaos that you're experiencing on a regular basis, no matter what that is, being unhappy at home, being unhappy with work, the people that are in your life currently, etc. And you want to do all of these things, but you find yourself trying something and then you stop. You try something and then you stop, and you try again and then you stop again. music, especially Jim's music, is such a beautiful, empowering tool to just implement into your life with ease so that you don't have to really practice anything other than pressing play. And just let his music do the hard work in the beginning, and it's of course not work, but let his music be the catalyst for your energy and your vibration to change in any given moment. And even if you can't listen to his music right away when you're at the top of, when you're feeling your most exhausted or when you're feeling your most frustrated, angry self, and you can't implement his music right then and there, please give yourself the gift to go back at another time throughout the day so you can harmonize and you can balance out and you can let that anger, that frustration, the sadness, the loneliness to vibrate right out of your system, your energetic field, your physical field, emotional, etc. So, Jim, please, how is it that they can find you?
Thank you, Pamela. I have a website, which is jimolivermusic.com. And on there you will see especially the section Harmonies of Light, where my life dream has been to coordinate musical notes with the mathematically related harmonized colors. And I've finally been able to achieve that in the last probably about a year ago. Anyhow, there's videos there that you can watch. On the music products page, there are samples of dozens and dozens and dozens of pieces of music. Use your intuition, use your guidance. What will support me? One of the pieces is going to glow in the dark. Your hand's just going to want to, mouse click on that one. Trust that intuition, your higher self. It's a practice. My friend Krishna Das, I was listening to a satsang and somebody said, I've been meditating for 40 years, will I ever get to the place to where I don't have to anymore? And he says, this room that I'm in, every morning I come in and I meditate. He says, and I've been doing this a really long time. He's in his late 60s. He started, in his early teens. He's been meditating for, 55 years. It's a practice like music. You get up, you practice your scales, you practice your finger exercises, you practice a piece of music hour after hour, hundreds of hours, thousands of hours, tens of thousands of hours. And after a while, it just absolutely flows like second nature. So I encourage people, do a meditation, follow your breath, be in the stillness, the openness. And relating to music, receive, resonate, and radiate. Receive the music. It works on a cellular level. Resonate, body, mind, spirit, and emotion with music that's created to nurture and empower and encourage and elevate like a soundtrack. Like the sun comes up and the sky opens and all of nature is there for you. And then radiate that beautiful vibration, that love that comes authentically from your pure heart. Authenticity, true to thyself. And bring that forth to people. That energy that you carry, the simple smile. And you said it beautifully. We are what we consume, and I'm going to add to that. We are what consumes us. And are we consumed with love and joy, or are we consumed with fear and anger and frustration? And I invite everyone to replace authentically the fear, the anger, the doubt, the false perception of lack. This universe was not created out of lack. The universe is abundant. And if you focus on poverty and not enough money, the universe will give you an abundance of that negativity. But if you focus on the gifts that are available every day, sometimes you got to look a little harder, but you're the one that's in control of your life. Be
100%.
what you consume. Eat organically, exercise, meditate. Somebody's given you a challenge, ask their permission, talk to their higher self, to their subconscious mind, and explain how their behavior makes you feel. And you will be amazed how a simple thing like that, use the music when you get up in the morning, when you have your breakfast. Don't be putting on the news and all the bad news and all the negative vibration. Let go of that. Replace that with nurturing, loving music. Play it for your family at mealtime, when your friends come over for tea. Play it in your garden. Play it for your pets. Massage therapists play it all day long. Play it in your car. Now, obviously, for the kind of person that gets a little drifty and you freak out, be aware. Be aware. Be self-responsible. But give yourself that. I get letters from truck drivers that they get stuck in traffic. They used to, chew their nails and smoke 2 packs of cigarettes and all, and now they put on the music. They're happy. I get letters from farmers that play it for their cows. Their cows don't kick at each other and kick at him as much, and they produce more milk. It just makes sense. It just is absolute common sense, and it's so immediately accessible. Play the music over and over and over. The energy builds every time. It reinforces with each time you listen, and listen from a cellular, fully present participation. You can also have it playing in the background. That's wonderful. But some of these pieces are truly magnificent. Because of my classical training, the music has a depth to it, a symphonic depth to it. So experience that. Give yourself 100% of yourself, 100%, fully aware and present and available, an open mind, an open heart, the innocence of a child. You'll be amazed.
Words were never spoken more truer than what you just shared with us. Absolutely brilliant. Jim, thank you. I can't believe our time is over already. I want to thank you so much for sharing you and your brilliance and your gifts and your talents with us today, your wisdom. It's been an absolute pleasure. For those of you who are wondering or may have recognized the name, Jim actually did write the music, both my intro and outro for the Calling the Real You podcast. And I have to say, every time I listen to it, I almost don't want the talking to begin. I just want the music to continue. But
thank
anyway,
you.
Thank you. And that reminds me, I do need to thank a few other folks, and that is, of course, my creator and my husband, for with his support, none of this would be possible, and the Reverend Patricia Brooks. With her and her platform, this would not be possible. And a few of our friends and sponsors, Lux Salon Spa and Karen D. Felice Designs and Yola Portraits as well. For those of you who have questions or want to find out more information about myself, Jim, or these other friends of ours that I mentioned, please feel free to reach out to us through the podcast itself. And again, Jim, please, what is your website one more time?
JimOliverMusic.com.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Have a blessed day and a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.